Iho mitaki api relatives. Dea pentuki ake ampetu duto anji uyakupi. You've given us a beautiful red day. And I am Tonkai Inajiwe, Standing Stone of the Ihangtwa Dakota, the Yankton Dakota, or as non-native people say, Yankton Sioux. I am also descended from the Magaska Oshpaya, the White Swan Band of the Ihangtwa. And I come from many Teoshpayas, or extended family systems, but most importantly, I come from the White Swan Band and also from the Deloria Teoshpaya, the Not Afraid of the Pawnee Teoshpaya, the Yellow Thunder Teoshpaya, and I'm also, although in government way, concentration camp way, I'm enrolled here at Yankton, but I'm also descended from Bande wa Gantuya. My grandmother was from, my great-grandmother, who I'm named after, is from Minnesota, and my great-grandfather was Sichangu from Rosebud, and my father was enrolled at Crow Creek, the Hunkpati. So I come from many bands. And I'm here to talk about this wonderful, great, awesome, beyond belief, back to who we are as a people conference and circle that happened the last 4 beautiful days here on Ihangtwa homelands. This gathering came from, first of all, a dream of my grandmother, Lillian Rhee, who was the great-granddaughter of a treaty signer struck by the Rhee. I was instructed in this dream for what direction to go, and it wasn't just about me. There were many, many people in the dream. And we followed that dream. We did ceremony. We led in prayers led us to make a call for the people. And most importantly, to call to leadership from treaty councils, grassroots people, ordinary Ikjewi, Chasha, Ikjewi, ordinary people, and also elected officials. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to get away from the separatism, which is an earmark of colonialism. When you work in isolation, it's a colonial act. And we felt like the old camp circles from a long time ago, we had to survive. So every member of the camp was consulted. So it was a traditional consultation to come together, and we sent out information. We sent criers through the internet, the runners, and many, many nations, sovereign nations, came from all across what we call the Oceti Shakoi, the 7 council fires, and it was really overwhelming. It's hard to put into words, but it began with ceremony and it ended with ceremony, and everything in between was so unprecedented. And it was unprecedented in the sense of modern day, but very much led by the guidance of who we used to be from the old days. And of course, we can't replicate that 100%. We had glitches, but above all, we're humble about what happened the last 3 days. And the main purpose beyond the ceremony, leading out of the ceremony, prayers and the call for people to come, was to stop a threat to our lives, our land, and our grandchildren and the unborn in the form of the Keystone XL pipeline. We believe that this, in our language, Woshicha, is to make it bad. And this pipeline is going to make it bad. And since 2008, the Ihangtwa, through the Cultural Committee, we put a resolution and said, no Keystone Pipeline, the Eastern Pipeline, we don't want you here. They did not listen. In our language, we call it Nukhcha, wooden ears. The government has very hard wooden ears. We took them to court. They did not heed us. And when the Keystone XL began to come, we knew that this is probably another fight that replicates what we did in the old days. And this one is a very threat to the water of our people. It is too close to the Missouri River. People make these claims over and over on the edge of ridiculousness that you're not supposed to worry, but our bodies are made 2/3 water. The earth is made of 2/3 water. You can't help but make an impact on water. And it takes just common sense to realize that we are over the Oglala aquifer, And that is the very lifeblood of our people. In our language, we call it we. And there's a saying that the Cheyenne, the great Cheyenne nation, said that a nation is not defeated until the hearts of the women are on the ground. And that's why we stand up, because we listen to what the Cheyenne relatives said. And as grandmothers, one of the sponsors of the group was the Braveheart Society, of which I am a member, a very proud member. It's a traditional society, and we don't want our hearts on the ground because we have to stand up for our grandchildren. The other sponsor was the Ihangtuan Treaty Council. I'm a lifetime member on the Treaty Council, and we know that we have treaty rights that we have to defend. In the process of receiving the dream, we were told to remember who we made these sacred treaties with, because every time we made a treaty, we had the pipe, we prayed. We just didn't say, okay, I'm going to do this and you promise to do this. We solemnized it with prayer, good relationships, and we fed people. And we housed them. We opened up our camp. And so the dream led us to call the great Pawnee Nation, who used to be our traditional enemies. And on January 23rd, 1863, we came together in a Ponca village called Niobrara. It's called Neobadaska, is the way that they said it. There's always an English translation that messes up the traditional language, but we were called there, and there was a government agent there as a witness, and we were requested to stop the fighting and stop the killing. And I think the Ponca were involved because they were in the middle of us. And so 6 Pawnee Oitancha, or leaders, came all the way from Oklahoma, where they had been placed with the Trail of Tears, removed from their homeland, and 6 of our leaders, and one of those was my great-grandfather struck by the or Padani Apapi. And so in my way of feeling, in my spirit, I think that's the dream that I had from my great-grandmother, or from my grandmother, Lillian Rhee. So we called the Pawnee Nation, and they were very happy to renew this treaty, affirm this peace between us. And in the process of affirming this peace, we believe very strongly that these treaties from one sovereign to another sovereign were unilateral agreements that we made commitments to. These are not light commitments. These were commitments that said, my word is my character, my word is my people, my word is who I stand for in my nation. And so when we made that agreement, we reaffirmed it, and we asked them to come up and do ceremony and a grand council. And so this conference that we just came off of the last 4 days was a great grand council between the Pawnee and the Ihangtuan, the descendants of those chiefs and leaders. And in the process of doing that, we are also a member, as the Ihangtuan. We're a band of the larger Oceti Sakowin, or the Great Sioux Nation. And so we put the call out to treaty councils, elected leaders, all the elements of the Oceti, and we were so greatly pleased that they responded. And to me, it's like we're at a juncture in our history of our indigenous 7 council fires that the people have been waiting. This unification, this great reunification has to happen. And there were so many people here from very many sovereigns within the Northern Plains, beyond the 7 council fires. We had our what we call Kanata, or Canada, we call grandmother's land, or Kushima Koche, and we had chiefs come from Canada. And in the process of reaffirming this relationship, we all have a common mother, and that mother is Inamaka. And so that relationship is the primary one, because if you ignore that, that is so rude, uncivilized, and beyond belief that you would disrespect your mother. It's like a teenager. And it's even insulting to a teenager, because a teenager will generally listen when the right parties request them to listen. But the government is we have many types of literature entering the schools about being bullies. And if anything, the U.S. government is a bully, and saying, we'll consult with you to a certain point, but remember, we wrote the law. The Section 106 was created. In a sense, it's a colonial construct that says, I'll consult with you, but I do have to go on. And so in the process of consulting, we went to the nation level, and we're acting as sovereigns, and we're saying that corridor is essential to our life, our very identity, our lifeways, our burials, our ceremonial places, and even right now, the right to do ceremony in those places will be denied. As recent as the 1970s, with the passage of the American Indian Religious Freedom Act, and one of my adopted brothers, Reuben Snake, did testimony at that. And he said, at this late date, we celebrated the right to have these ceremonies. And once again, we're being denied that right on that corridor. The other unprecedented thing that happened during this gathering was some healing occurred between non-native Euro-American white ranchers and farmers who are also being impacted by this. And we call them the New Indians. And it was a grand healing in the Grand Council that we were able to sit with them in the circle. They expressed their pain, their fear, and the knowledge that this is what happens when people take your land. With the eminent domain and the condemning of their land for the purpose of sacrifice area, they know now how we feel. And so they came and they cried with us, they pledged with us, and they made commitment to not allow this to happen. And so in former years, somewhere they formed a Cowboy and Indian Alliance, the CIA, and this is similar, and maybe it's an offshoot of that, but it's the Cowboys and Indians literally standing together along with all the other parties. It was such a privilege to sit with people from all across the country who are involved in this. And so to me, it is just recently, people have been calling this panic thing about the Mayan prophecy of the world's going to end. And we, as Native people, Aboriginal people, all along, we have realized that there was a change of worlds that was going to happen. And so that change occurred with the past winter solstice. And the call also with that change is that we not only have to take care of Mother Earth, we have to take care of our relationships with each other. And so what I saw happening in the Grand Council is that the sovereigns rose to the level of diplomacy where we could indeed create a safe arena to listen to each other and assert that we indeed are sovereign nations that have this blood memory. It's in our blood. In the Euro-American Western way, they call it genetic memory. We call it we'okana, it's in the blood. And you could see that happening today, or the last few days, with the children, the families, the Tioshbaya, the extended families. And the greatest thing that we could do, in the old days, they said that you were measured as a person by your generosity, not how much money you earned, how many cars you had, or how many houses, but you were measured by how you could feed the people, how you could house them, how you could take care of them. And we were able to do that. And we were able to do that with the generosity of the Four Worlds International Institute out of Canada. And that is overseen by an Ihangtwa relative, Philip Lane. I'm very proud to say that he's a relative of mine. He's a tribal brother, and we fed the people. We took care of them. We are known as the land of the friendly people, and we had a standard to live up to. And so we did that. We shared this. We received some message from the Pawnee people that they would like to have us travel to their land. In this gathering, they came here and we showed them who we are today, and they've invited us to return down there for a ceremony.